The Sunrise Movement has made an official endorsement, and it is Bernie Sanders. So now, Sunrise Movement, of course, is an influential movement of primarily young people that is fighting to stop catastrophic climate change. Now, one of the policy positions they support, which kind of goes to tell you why they would support Bernie Sanders, is a Green New Deal. Green New Deal, of course, is the $16.3 trillion complete overhaul of the economy, eliminating fossil fuels, getting rid of the subsidies, building renewable energy, a huge focus on infrastructure, millions of jobs. So it's a very involved plan that Bernie Sanders has adopted. And it's one that the Sunrise Movement, of course, agrees with. So now, this endorsement basically cements Bernie Sanders as the leading candidate on climate change, climate action. So now, how they did this vote, this is great. Very, very transparent. They asked their members. I know that sounds radical, but again, when you look at some of the other endorsements, as I'm going to get into later, they're not as transparent, and they don't necessarily ask their members. Now, after 6 weeks of deliberation among their membership, here's what the results were. The Sunrise Movement voted for Bernie Sanders by 76%. 76% of the movement. That's amazing. Now, who are the other people that were notable? Well, about 17% actually favored Elizabeth Warren. So 17%. Where do the other people rank? Oh, you're going to love this. Turns out that the third highest was no preference with 1.8%. Wow. All right. Who's in fourth? Pete Buttigieg at 1.16%. Yes, it's fourth, but it's a strong fourth. And then finally, 1.2%. I'm sorry, 1.02% for Andrew Yang. So no preference did better than those two people. Look, Andrew Yang, I like Andrew Yang. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a decent guy. I think he's got some interesting ideas. I do not support him. And I think his climate plan is terrible. Basically, it's like, run for the hills, guys. It's going to get bad. Okay, well, that's not exactly the best plan. I mean, yes, maybe eventually we will have to run to the hills, especially if we don't do anything. But maybe we can try to work on that before we have to run screaming. I'm just saying. But again, I think he's got interesting ideas. I think there's some interesting conversations to be had for some of this policy. UBI, look, man, 1K a month, bro, is pretty nice. But if you are, and this is Yang's plan, if you're going to eliminate all of their welfare and replace it with a UBI, well, that's not good at all. That's not going to do anything to help people. So that's an issue. But anyway, going to climate change, nobody even comes close to Bernie Sanders, not Elizabeth Warren. So now, let me give you a statement here from Varshini Prakash and political director Evan Weber. This is Sunrise Movement's executive director and political director, respectively. Quote, "We know that no matter who the next president is, we will need to turn millions of people into the streets and disrupt business as usual in order to win a Green New Deal. But our movement has spoken clearly, and as you can see, they have chosen Bernie Sanders." Now, this movement is great. I've met a lot of young activists from them. I've talked to them. They're energetic, they're organized, they're passionate, they're committed. And so I think they're a perfect fit for the Sanders campaign. Sanders has the most ambitious plan. He wants to spend, again, $16.3 trillion on a Green New Deal that will completely transform our energy system, create millions of great paying jobs, and put us on a path to sustainability. Now, Elizabeth Warren, again, she's at second with 17%. She did have a plan. Look, I actually liked it back when her slogan was, "I've got a plan for that," right? Now, her plans end up being a little bit less ambitious. So, and her plan for climate change focused a lot on oceans. She called it the Blue New Deal. Now, part of that And I'm going to read you a couple of pieces of her plan, but basically she calls for $2 trillion in clean energy spending, okay, partly to finance an expansion of wind and water energy gathered offshore. I think that's a great idea. She also wants to invest $400 million in research into emerging energy technologies. I think that's a little, I think you should probably put a little bit more money into that. Also, she proposes boosting the activist sector responsible for trying to rebuild fish populations. So, overfishing is a huge problem. Also, thanks to climate change, ocean acidification, as well as dead spots in the ocean where there is no oxygen, thanks to, of course, the effects of climate change. Now, she says, well, that's going to bring hundreds of thousands of jobs. Okay. Warren also proposes ending all new leases of public or offshore real estate to any fossil fuel industry, and wants to end offshore drilling completely in the long term. So all those things are good. The timetable bothers me, so not good. I think we need, well, I don't think, the scientists are saying that we need to act, and we need to act quickly and get this done before 2030. So we've only got 10 years. We're on the clock. We do not have time for incrementalism. Even so, Elizabeth Warren's incrementalism is still a lot better than somebody like Joe Biden's incrementalism, which arguably takes us even longer to even get to, half of our energy being used or being generated by renewable sources. So again, Green New Deal, you can't beat that. It is bold. It is progressive. It is gigantic and earth-shaking. So now, this poll, like I said, I'm going to do a comparison between the transparency of this poll, as you can see, their membership voting, and the Working Families poll. Now, Working Families Party endorsed Elizabeth Warren. A lot of people were saying, well, where's your numbers? We're not going to give you the numbers. The Sunrise Movement says, here's your numbers. Here you go. Have at it. We're completely 100% transparent. This is how we came to this conclusion. This is and this is what the conclusion is. Overwhelmingly for Bernie Sanders. And so, look, this is a problem with some of these organizations and their endorsements, right? For example, unions. Bernie Sanders is by far the best union president that we could ever have, right? Why are some of the unions still going for Joe Biden? And even some for Elizabeth Warren, but mostly Joe Biden. Well, look, when it comes to, for example, healthcare, right? Well, there's a lot of unions that actually are invested in the health insurance industry. And so, of course, they're going to go for somebody who preserves the health insurance industry. And I'm a union guy, but you can call out the bosses. You can call them out for doing things that are counterintuitive for working people. And a lot of unions, look, we're on the wrong side of Keystone XL. Oh, it's going to mean jobs for our workers. So we're going to be in favor of building pipelines. But I'm not in favor of building pipelines. Pipelines, of course, they spill, they leak, they contaminate groundwater sources and habitats for animals and all that stuff. No, we need to not build more pipelines. What we need to do is invest in renewable energy that doesn't need those pipelines. And so the unions, of course, don't agree with that and generally vote for somebody like, again, Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry, not Bernie Sanders, but Joe Biden and not Bernie Sanders. So, look, that's why I'm a little skeptical of some of these polls that do not have that transparency that the Sunrise Movement has. And so you can see why a lot of people are asking questions about that. And are hailing this as very transparent. So, nonetheless, methodology, aside, this is a pretty huge endorsement. This is great and well-deserved. And it's also a huge loss for Elizabeth Warren, who's been losing steam, who's been losing ground in the polls in this election. So, in this primary. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc. We're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.